Welcome to the Counselling Tutor Podcast, the must-listen-to podcast for students of counselling and psychotherapy. Here are your hosts, Rory Lees-Oakes and Ken Kelly.
Hello, I'm Rory, and with me, as always, is Ken. How are you, Ken?
Exceptionally well, Rory. I'm recognising that we are coming to the end of our academic run for this academic year of the Counselling Tutor Podcast. This is episode 156, so glad to be here. And I guess looking back on a great year of podcasts that we've been able to put out, and looking at this episode where we're going to talk about three topics, starting off with talking about confidentiality. Is this a legal or an ethical requirement? I think that's going to be an interesting topic. Check in today with CPCAB. You spoke with Ray Funderpool about something really exciting, Rory. Can you kind of just fill us in what we might expect from that?
Yes, in the last of our interviews with our good friends at CPCAB, Ray Vanderpool, who, just to remind everybody, was the first voice we heard at the beginning of the season or the year, who spoke right at the beginning for CPCAB, finishes off our time with CPCAB and speaks about the developments in their programme and tells us about a BACP accredited course that they're piloting. Exciting times. Looking
forward to that one. And we end our episode today, 156, by looking at acceptance and commitment therapy. We have a lecture coming up by Dr. Richard Bennett. Lots of interesting information that's come from that. So we're just going to be speaking about acceptance and commitment therapy, what that looks like from a practice point of view. But starting off with that, I guess, sticky and topical confidentiality. Is it legal or an ethical requirement?
Well, the answer to that is yes. So we could probably stop the podcast there. I think it's one that students sometimes get a little confused with, and I'm so grateful to the person who posted this question in our Facebook page. And if you don't know about our Facebook page, go to Facebook, type in Counselling Tutor. You'll find us. We are a closed group. Knock on the door. Of course, we're going to let you in, and you can join thousands of like-minded people in the world of counselling and psychotherapy, maybe students, maybe qualified colleagues. We have some supervisors and some tutors all talking about counselling topics. And this came up, confidentiality, is it a legal or an ethical requirement? And the answer, as I said earlier, is actually it's both. Confidentiality is, well, first of all, it's not secrecy. So confidentiality is a contracted agreement between you and the client about what information you may have to share. And there are some legal obligations that you have to share information. So prevention of terrorism, money laundering, drug trafficking, they're all exceptions to confidentiality. And those, of course, should be in your contract. But in terms of a legal requirement, that covers that. In terms of an ethical requirement, of course, we need to keep our clients' confidences. They come to tell us their innermost difficulties, their angst, if you like. And as a consequence of that, they don't want that information broadcasted to everybody. They don't want it on social media or told to the person on the back of the bus, so to speak. So it is an ethical requirement, and it's enshrined in a lot of ethical frameworks. And of course, in terms of the legal side, I think that brings us to another interesting idea. In the UK, since 2018, the General Data Protection Regulations have become law in this country. The General Data Protection Regulations were in force in terms of they were some legislation, but they became legal legislation and enforceable legislation in 2018. And under General Data Protection Regulations, you have to keep your clients' details, their contact details, their phone details, confidential. You have to secure their data and make sure it doesn't get lost or leaked out to people. So, yes, confidentiality is both a legal and an ethical requirement. And I've put together a handout that you can download, which just gives an overview on the differences between what the ethical requirements are and what the legal requirements are. So if there's anybody doing a paper writing an essay, or you're just unsure, that will clear that up.
Indeed. So as you kind of started off by looking at the legalities of where we need to break confidentiality in a counselling relationship, and you'd need to look to your ethical body and to your laws in the country and the jurisdiction that you work in to see where those laws lie. When do you have to break that confidentiality? And as you quite rightly said, Rory, this is all agreed to beforehand. It's something that you would be mentioning in your contract verbally and written, so that the client has a full understanding of what that looks like, because you don't have a choice in the matter. You have to break that confidentiality. You're called upon by law to break confidentiality in those instances. Then we've got that the ethics, because counselling, for me, the cornerstone of counselling is ethics and confidentiality, in that somebody can come, they can share their journey, they're not going to be judged, and that information is going to be held as sacred. It's not going to be shared with anybody else. So I guess from an ethical point of view, we do hold that confidentiality. And I guess that what's interesting for me is there are kind of greyish areas here, because the ethics are not always underpinned by the law. So if you had an unethical therapist and they decided to start telling people about presentations and the story that a client told them, they would not be prosecutable by law in most instances, although they would be called to account maybe by the ethical body specifically if a complaint was made. So that would be an ethical breach of that confidentiality, but you wouldn't find themselves in a court of law having to answer for that, unless, and this is where it becomes sticky, unless you were giving out clients' details, their name, their address, their telephone number, their email address, any of that, because that is protected by law, as you quite rightly pointed out, Rory. Here in the United Kingdom and in Europe, General Data Protection Regulation came into effect in 2018 and protects that data. We have to keep that secure. And if that is going to be shared in any way, shape or form, that has to be agreed by informed consent when the person is giving you that information in the first place. And what I mean by informed consent is you can't just have agree to our terms and conditions, and in your terms and conditions somewhere it says we can share your data. It has to be really clearly laid out. You can't use a pre-ticked box. They have to look at it, see how that data is being used and stored. They agree to it by ticking it and saying, yes, I agree. Very often there is a second email sent to them saying, do you really agree? That's called a double opt-in, getting the person's informed permission. So it's tricky to navigate, and I can understand why the question came in, but I think it is a kind of topic that's worth some reflection on. It's definitely one that is fun for a chat with a colleague, because you can go into some areas, the grey areas as it were, that can be quite interesting. Things like, but in supervision, you're sharing a client's details, and of course you're covered by the ethics there, but it just makes for interesting conversation.
It does, and I think one real big difference between ethical and legal is the legal is absolutely set in stone. There's no argument about it. However, the ethical side is one that is explorable. So in some settings, if you're working, for instance, in a rehabilitation unit for people who are in active substance misuse, confidentiality may be contracted in different ways. So it's not unusual for colleagues who are working with people in recovery, but maybe having a prescription to help them ease the cravings of drugs, to put in their contracts that if the client discloses they're using street drugs and they're on a medical prescription, that they'd have to break confidentiality. And there's a very good reason for that, because people can take too many drugs and sadly people die. So in terms of confidentiality, it can be agency or situational specific, and that lives in the contract. So when a client contracts with you, they will look at the contract and make an informed choice about what the areas of confidentiality are. When it comes to the law, there's no wriggle room at all. That's the law, and you have to abide by it.
Yeah, and the law is like you've said, Rory, it's pretty much a sharp, hard edge. It doesn't bend. It stays exactly where it is. And the not understanding the law is not a defense when it comes to the law. So accidental sharing of breaking of confidentiality when the law is concerned, when the law has said you may not share this information, if you do it accidentally, you still have to appear, and you will still be charged for that in the eyes of the law. However, it would be interesting in if you look to the ethical side of things. So if confidentiality was broken accidentally, and I'll just taking an example here, because this is what this is about. It's looking at all the nooks and crannies, isn't it? So if you were having a counselling session with a client, and that could be overheard in another room, and then afterwards the person said, hey, they heard this conversation and they reported that to as a complaint to an ethical body, I wonder how that would stand. Would you be able to defend it? Would you be able to say that was an accident and I will reflect on my practice and that won't happen again? Maybe there's a grey area. But if it comes to the law and you've shared somebody's data that is held confidential under the data protection legislation, you're still liable for it. You're liable for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I was reminded many times as a young boy growing up, ignorance of the law is no defence. So you cannot say, well, I didn't know about that, because that doesn't stand as a defence. So they are two different things. And I think it is a bit of a difficult concept for students to grasp, because the law side is absolute. The ethical side is very much situational dependent, and I think it takes a little bit of thinking about and a little bit of kind of reflection to realise the differences. But really grateful for that person in our Facebook group for bringing it up. I'm sure that a lot of people will get benefit from both the responses in the Facebook group and our response, and of course the handout. So that's great. And if you want the handout, then go to our website, counsellingtutor.com. And if you click the podcast tab, you'll find it in 156. And you just click on it and we'll send it to you. And you can have a look at it, and that might be of use to you.
Indeed. Well worth having Rory's super duper handouts. If you go and click on that podcast tab, you'll see all of our back episodes of our podcast. Each one of them has got one of Rory's super duper handouts. Yes. And they're all free. You just go through them, pop in your name, your email address, and we will send those to you. That's kind of our free service to you, as is this podcast. So moving away from that interesting discussion there, on to our check-in with CPCAB. You spoke with Ray Thunderpool from CPCAB, and they have some great news of their new BACP accredited course, Rory.
Yes, I mean, we've had a great year with CPCAB. They've really shared the internal workings of an awarding body, something really I don't think that has been done before. And I know that from our mailbox and from the comments we had on the Facebook page, people have really appreciated understanding how an awarding body works and the processes they go through. And we'd like to thank Heather, Kelly and Ray Vanderpool for being regular contributors on the podcast. We really have enjoyed working with them. And Ray was our the first voice on the CPCAB section, and he is the final one in as we come to the end of this series of podcasts. And Ray told us about a new BACP accredited level 4 course, and all terribly excited about that. And Ray outlines what that looks like, and talks a little bit about the choices that people can make when engaging on that course.
Let's check in with CPCAB.
Check in with CPCAB.
So, hello and welcome to Check In with CPCAB, and it's our final check-in for the year. And I'm joined from CPCAB with Ray Vanderpool. So welcome, Ray, for the very last of this podcast season.
Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It has been such a journey, and really enjoyed every single minute of it.
Yeah, and I know that from the audience feedback, we've had lots of people saying how useful it's been just to open the door into an awarding body, just understand your frame of reference as an awarding body, and to also look at the kind of the other things that you do, because I think people may see you in one dimension, but you do so much. And we've talked about different courses, and we've also talked a little bit about how things are assessed, something that students ask consistently. How's it assessed? How do we get our certificates? So much. It's been a real exciting, eye-opening journey, Ray.
Yeah, it has been really nice to be able to have a platform to speak with our candidates or students or learners, because we do work really hard in the background, and we have this strong commitment to developing competent practitioners and counsellors. Awarding organization that's run by counsellors for counsellors. We are embedded in the field, and it's really, really, really important to us to be able to contribute in some way, and having the ability to be on your podcasts has really given us an opportunity to open that dialogue and engage with our candidates and learners.
Yes,
so it's been really good.
Absolutely, and you know, I'll say on behalf of our audience, thank you so much. We get so many letters saying just how enlightening it's been and how helpful it's been. Not only, I think, from students, but also tutors who can hear on a regular basis how the organisation is working. And I think one of the things for me that's come out of this is just how embedded you are in the therapeutic field. You're not an awarding body that really just does counselling and then may do another unrelated course. You said it yourself, it's run for counsellors by counsellors, and that's just a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's something that we hope that our tutors and centres and candidates really benefit from, because we want to make things as easy as possible, and we want standards to be as high as possible.
Absolutely, and of course, everything we do is to make a difference in service of clients, and I think that's come across in every interview that we've done. That everything that CPCAB does is helping those who are learning counselling to be the very best for the clients to sit in front of.
It's so important. Counselling makes such a big difference to people's lives. Being a counsellor and seeing development happen before your eyes and transformations, and people become more able to cope with the challenges in their lives, it is a real privilege. And if we can contribute to that, then we've done our job.
Yeah, and I think that's really inspirational. I'm sure there'll be people listening to this who are just starting their counselling journey, and to hear that is the ambition of people who are developing training qualifications, I think is incredibly reassuring, because that is exactly what it's all about.
Yeah, and the the idea of assessment criteria and learning outcomes. These are things that are that's the education part of what we do, but it's not the heart of what we do. And we work very hard to work within education, but also to try and make it digestible as much as possible, because, as you know, Rory, being a former tutor, that education speak is a completely different language, and it's hard sometimes.
It is. I as someone who was once called a professional interpreter, I think it is. One of the things, it is a different language, and sometimes I think it's easy to lose the essence of what counselling is, because we're tied up in these very defined criteria, which you have to have, because the people who regulate qualifications ask us to hit that. I think one of the things that really struck me about this year with CPCAB, when we came to see you, was that it's a living organisation. So they're not kind of potted in aspic, the qualifications. They're not kind of pittled, put on a shelf and left for years. They're informed by research, and they're developed and updated on a reasonably regular basis. And you've just updated one of your qualifications, or designed another qualification. And we were talking just before we went to broadcast. It's quite exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, the new development, the new qualification that will be available from September 2020 is the BACP approved practitioner qualification, CPCAB Level 4 Diploma in Therapeutic Counselling. So I don't know, it doesn't quite roll off the tongue. It's quite a long title, but the essence of the qualification is to maintain and uphold the robust standards of both CPCAB and BACP. And it's a qualification that we worked with BACP to design. In its essence, it is the exact same diploma in therapeutic counseling in a nutshell, but it has an extra additional part to it. And it's the part that centers need to fulfill, and hopefully that our candidates or students benefit from. So this is a qualification that is for centers that already align themselves with BACP as far as their ethos is concerned, their ethical framework. So if you were going to a particular center and they were delivering the level 4 qualification and they were using, for instance, the BACP ethical framework, their tutors were BACP members, then this qualification would be a good fit for that center. So it's an opt-in pilot scheme at the moment for our centers. So with any pilot, there comes probably some challenges that we'll need to look at. But what will happen with this is that we hope that because the tutors, well, we don't hope, we know that the centers will need to fulfill certain requirements to deliver the qualification. Their tutors will have to be BACP members. The students will be BACP members for the duration of the course. And that will, funny enough, that will open up other resources to them. But in the certificate of proficiency, which enables you to get onto the BACP membership registered member, as a registered member, will be included in the course. So part of what we wanted to create for these candidates is an easy, straightforward route onto the BACP membership register. So being part of a professional register. Now, if a candidate did this particular qualification at the end didn't want to be a member of BACP, then they don't have to. It doesn't. We also wanted to be very clear that we didn't want to disadvantage any of our students. So you can still use this qualification to gain entry onto other membership organizations as well, or associations.
Yes, and I think for those who are listening who may be a bit confused with COP and Certificate of Proficiency, I think it's best explained this way. Here in England, Scotland has a slightly different route, but here in England, and I think I'm right in saying in Wales and of course in Northern Ireland, what happens is that you graduate your course traditionally, and you may be a student member of the BACP and have student membership, and then to get a full membership of the BACP, you have to do something called a Certificate of Proficiency test. Now, I did mine when it was in its very early stages, and I went to a hotel and did a multiple choice questionnaire, which was done online under invigilated circumstances, and then we left, and a few weeks later, I got a little slip through the post from our friends at the BACP who said that I'd passed the Certificate of Proficiency test and I could now become what was then MBACP, a member of the British Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy. And if you want to go on the register and I guess practice as a full member, you have to do that test as it stands. Now, there have been accredited routes for a long time, which means you do a BACP accredited course, and when you qualify that course, you don't have to do that test, and that's exactly what you're alluding to here. The course, yes.
So this is the originally, actually, funny enough, this pilot went out in Scotland, I think, a couple of years ago. So they've been running it for a couple of years. But essentially, what BACP have decided that they would also like to do, besides the accredited courses, is they wanted to be able to offer approved qualifications. So it's a different level of, so this would open this particular qualification up to a whole range of centres that could deliver the qualification, and at qualification level your certificate of proficiency is included and therefore gain entry onto the membership, the register. So it's at that different level, and I suppose it puts less administration for the centre, you could argue, if you are already running a level 4 with us.
Yes.
So it really is, it's something the centre needs to decide if it's something they want to run.
So just to be clear, you would have to start on this pathway. You'd have to go on to this course from the day that you walk through the door. If you're on a level 4 CPCAB course, you can't convert, or can you convert?
Currently, the way that the course is set out is that there isn't a conversion. However, if, for instance, we had a large amount of centres that already meet all the requirements, and if you go onto our website, there's a web page that we've built that has all the requirements that centres would need to achieve to be able to run this qualification. So I suppose the answer currently is no, it's not possible. However, this is a pilot scheme, so we are open to working within what a pilot means, and that is a test of something.
Yes, and I guess for those people who are going back to study maybe in September, they would have to go on this specific course. It's a specific iteration, if you like, of the CPCAB level 4 course with the word BACP in it.
Yes, so we are still offering both level 4s. So one is the BACP approved practitioner qualification with the diploma level 4, and then we offer the diploma in therapeutic counselling as well. So really, this particular qualification is for centres that align themselves with the BACP, and that's a good fit. If the centres didn't, for instance, have tutors that were BACP members, then it wouldn't be a good fit, and the students would do that qualification. And the main difference would be, as you pointed out earlier, they would need to do the certificate of proficiency to gain registration.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that if you're interested in this, you need to find out from your centre which qualification they're running, and I think that's really important. You need to be absolutely clear that they are running the BACP practitioner course, because some centres may be running the non-BACP practitioners course. So you're going to have to be certain about that. And I think it just goes to show, as I started off in this interview saying, just how quickly you adapt, CPCAB adapt, and you never really stop. It's the qualifications are almost living entities.
Yeah, the qualifications actually. Something came into my head when you were talking earlier about how the qualifications adapt. Now, due to our qualifications being regulated by Ofqual, it's not very easy for us to change the actual assessment criteria. So that would take a year or years for that to go through. But what we do update on a yearly basis is the guidance that goes with our assessment criteria. So it might not always be very visible that we are working really hard with current practice within our field. But what you should find as a tutor, at least, is that the message that we are given at the beginning of every year is, please look at the guidance, the tutor guidance, which is published on our website as well, because we will give slightly different guidance. So, for instance, a really good example currently is online counselling.
Yes.
So how does online counselling fit into courses and qualifications? Well, our hope is that obviously there's going to be qualifications specifically designed to look at online and telephone counselling. But I think as part of qualifications in general, it would make sense for when you're delivering ethical framework to include what that might look like if you were working online as well.
Absolutely.
maybe not in the depth of doing an online course, but certainly that would be an extra sort of form of guidance that might be included in there.
Absolutely, adapting to the new world we're finding ourselves in. Well, I think it's very fitting, Ray, that you started off the podcast series. Yours was the first voice that we heard from CPCAB, and yours is the final voice on this series of podcasts. From a personal level, I just want to thank yourself, Heather, and your colleagues for really bringing the podcast alive, really talking about how our awarding body run by counsellors for counsellors really works, and what the ethos and the kind of ethics are of it. And I really enjoyed it. And of course, Kelly, your colleague Kelly Budd has been a brilliant contributor to some of the taught aspects of it. So, Ray, I can only say thank you very much, and please send our love and our best wishes to all of you at CPCAB.
Thank you, Rory. I think from our side, we've enjoyed every minute of it, as I said earlier, and such a pleasure to work with an organisation with the same set of values and ideas around what we want to achieve within our field. So I'm pretty sure this will not be the only collaboration that we have, because we've completely enjoyed and thoroughly enjoyed working with you. So thank you very much, and I hope that the students and tutors have benefited.
Yes, I'm sure they will. And watch this space; it won't be the last we hear. I'm sure we'll hear in future podcasts from our good friends at CPCAB. So Ray Vanderpool, thank you very much.
Check-in with CPCAB is proudly sponsored by CPCAB, the only awarding body run by counsellors for counsellors. To learn more about CPCAB qualifications and to get more detailed information on today's podcast topic, visit cpcab.co.uk.
You know, what a final episode with Ray, because just talking about how they're developing their qualifications and what a forward-thinking organisation they are. So, as Ray said, if you are enrolling on a level 4 diploma in counselling, the BACP qualification will be part of the specification. So you're going to have to ask your training provider, are they running the BACP version? Some will, some might not. But it certainly is a development, and one that Ray was rightly excited about. Indeed, and as you said, going into this, Rory, really interesting, cracking open the inner workings of a awarding body, looking what that looks like, all the moving parts, and a much better understanding of that. So grateful to all of the team at CPCAB. So what can you expect, I guess, as we go forward, because that was our last check-in with CPCAB, and the Counselling Tutor Podcast runs in the United Kingdom academic year. And as we come to the end of our series here, we're going to be going forward, starting in the brand new academic year, which is round about late August, early September time, with a brand new section that's going to go into our podcast, and that is going to be called the Digital Revolution, where we're going to be speaking about the rise of technology-assisted counselling. So that's what you can look forward to. But let's carry on with today's episode, 156, where we are now going to be talking about acceptance and commitment therapy. We had a lecture by Dr. Richard Bennett for our CPD library. Now, Rory, I have not seen this lecture, and I'm going to be open here and really transparent in saying that acceptance and commitment therapy is not something that has crossed my path. It's not something I've read about. It's not something I've studied about. So I look forward to you sharing some information on this. Yeah, and I think that you wouldn't be alone. It is a new kid on the block in terms of therapeutic models, and it's an American devised therapeutic approach, devised by Dr. Stephen Hayes. He created it, and he summed it up by saying, ACT grew out of my experience with a panic disorder and treating clients with anxiety problems. I've been trained as a cognitive behavioural therapist, But when I realised that cognitive behavioural therapy wasn't helping me deal with my own problems and anxiety, I returned to some more of the Eastern ideas that had appealed to me in earlier life. And I think that's a real indication of the mixture that makes ACT unique. It is primarily a CBT therapy, but it does have real strong elements of mindfulness in it.
Ooh.
And yes. And I think that some of the people who are detractors from CBT say it's too thought processing. It's too kind of rigid, and it's just about thinking. Now, I know there'll be some colleagues listening who are third wave CBT practitioners who blend in lots of elements of humanistic theory, person-centered or Patricia Clarkson, and then use the CBT model to help clients construct plans to alter ways of thinking or alter their schemas. But it would seem that ACT is designed to do this. It's built by design to do this. And it gives clients the ability to be reflective and to live more in the moment. So it really is it's an interesting hybrid, and it's one that's gaining traction here in the UK. A few years ago, you'd hardly ever hear about acceptance and commitment therapy. But nowadays, you're hearing it more and more. And my feeling is that more practitioners are going to investigate this real interesting therapeutic approach purely from the position that it offers a CBT base, but it offers a very allows clients to be mindful and relaxation, which, of course, when you're working with clients who've got traumatic past, it's just so useful.
Yeah, the mindfulness element of this definitely piqued my interest there. Roy, you even gone from me on the mindfulness side of that. Mindfulness is something that has been very interesting to me for some time. I have my own, I guess, challenges in life in that I am autistic. I celebrate my autism. That's great. But it does bring up certain challenges in interacting with the world as it is at the moment. And I found that mindfulness is it's just phenomenal for me. It's almost like the key to being in the present moment, and it really, really helps me. And because of my interest in that, it's something that I've looked into, and the research shows that mindfulness has a massive impact on people. Just the practice of mindfulness can reduce stress, can reduce anxiety significantly and measurably. And I welcome any therapeutic process that kind of integrates mindfulness. And I think that the balance of having the behavioral model that underpins that, the more cognitive aspect of that, kind of lends a more, I guess, scientifically proven over the years base for it, if I want to say. I'm thinking back to Pavlovian responses when experimentation in behavior was kind of started and measured until today. So I think having that balance, very, very interesting. And of course, if this interests you, then we have the lecture, and that is in our CPD library for qualified practitioners, and you can get more information on that just by going to counsellingtutor.com. So on our homepage, you can see all about our CPD resources there.
Yes, and for those of you wondering what ACT stands for, of course it's an acronym, and the acronym is accept your thoughts and feelings and be present, choose a valued direction, and take action. So just in those three acronyms and the explanations of them, we can see it's a real hybrid. It is about accepting how you feel and validating how you feel. Choose a valued direction. In other words, use a cognitive strategy to strategize which direction you're going to take. And then once you've got that in position, just do it, as the famous trainer advert used to say, just go and do it. And I think that's why it's gaining some traction amongst people who, the CBT community have been looking, I think, for some time to, I'm not going to use soften the edges of CBT, but develop a more mindful approach to it. And ACT seems to do that in spades.
And I look back to rational emotive behavioral therapy, which is the ABC, the acceptance, belief, and consequence. And you can see the similarities there, the ACT of this model. I like that it starts with that acceptance. And I think so often when we're talking about trauma, when we're talking about hurtful emotions. There is an avoidance rather than an acceptance of them. Let me keep away from it. Let me rather stay in the narrative than to go and accept. I don't want to sit and accept it. It is painful. So starting with acceptance, I guess, is a great place to start in any therapeutic journey. I feel these feelings. They are real to me. I accept them. I embrace them as part of who I am. And only in that acceptance, I guess, is there any opportunity to move forward. I think it was Carl Rogers, one of Carl Rogers' quotes, and I don't quote it as Carl Rogers said, this is just from my kind of memory, but it was along the lines of, it is only when I truly accept myself as I am that I have any ability to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something I think that in terms of climate factors is being more recognised now. The ability or the desire for people to change is the most important outcome, one of the most important outcomes in therapy. If you're working with someone who doesn't want to change, then quite frankly, you're not going to get very far. No, not even the most talented therapist is going to help affect change. The person needs to want to change themselves. And I think that this model of therapy is really an action-based therapy. And as I say, it's gaining traction. So have a look at that lecture in the Counsellor CPD library, because it really does make it come alive. So we've come to journey's end for this academic year. We will be running some specials. So that doesn't mean we're going to stop podcasting, but it does mean for the time we're just going to have a well-earned rest. But we do have some podcasts that are specials, and we'll be announcing those as we go. So yes, this final podcast, as always, we look over what we've done. We talked about confidentiality, a legal or an ethical requirement, and don't forget to get the handout for that. We checked in with CPCAB, and they gave us a glimpse of the future of what qualifications may look like as they develop them going forward. And finally, we looked at the new kid on the block, acceptance and commitment therapy. So from both myself and Ken, thank you so much for lending your ears to us this year. We really, really do appreciate it. We love to hear the feedback, and we love to produce this for you and to be meaningful for you. And as always, take care, stay grounded, and really look after each other.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Counselling Tutor Podcast. Find the show notes for this episode on our website at www.counsellingtutor.com.